Been studying about the weather, is that right? Awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the cool tools that I use to forecast the weather. Then we're going to talk about some of the really cool and kind of crazy weather that we see here in Waco, okay? Now, a couple of things I'm going to ask for you. If you have questions, try to remember them, and we'll get them at the end of the presentation, okay? So we'll go and I'll talk. I'll probably answer a lot of your questions before we get done, and then we'll have some time to answer questions at the end. So now teachers, they're going to get excited. That's the point of it. I'm going to throw some crazy pictures up there, and they're all going to go, ah! That's just part of the fun, all right? Now the trick on y'all's end is to get all excited and have fun and then try to be quiet again. So we'll have fun with that. So what if I told y'all had to tell me what the weather's doing outside right now? Could y'all do it? What is it outside right now? Yeah, it's a little windy out there. Now what if I told you had to tell me how many clouds are outside but you can't look outside? Gets a little harder, doesn't it? What if I told you, though, you had to tell me what the weather is in, let's say, Denver, Colorado? Gets a little harder, doesn't it? Well, see, our weather moves, so I need to know what the weather's doing not only here in Waco, I need to know what the weather's doing all across Texas, I need to know what the weather's doing all across the United States, and really, I need to know what it's doing beyond that because our weather moves around. It was kind of warm this morning, wasn't it? Not too cold. When you walk out the door tomorrow morning, it's going to feel like it's 30 degrees colder because there's some cold air that's up in Colorado that's going to move here tomorrow, all right? So our weather moves. If you want to show. So here's one example. So y'all see that all right? And I'll move around so everybody can see. I heard hurricane. Is that what that looks like? Yeah. Okay. So y'all have all heard of the International Space Station, right? Where the astronauts go? Okay. So if you were an astronaut up in space, that's what a hurricane would look like, okay? Well, when I forecast the weather, I need to know where stuff is. You wouldn't want to be right in the middle of that hurricane to try to forecast it, would you? So what's really cool is we send satellites up in space, okay? So what they do is they sit up in space and take pictures from space to let me see what's going on all over the world. Because the cool thing is our weather moves all around the world. That hurricane right there was a hurricane back in 2007 called Hurricane Katrina. One of the biggest hurricanes ever to hit the United States. The crazy thing is that hurricane started out as a little bitty storm near Africa, worked all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, and became one of the biggest hurricanes ever to hit the United States. So what's cool is, if you see kind of up there, Texas is kind of up in the top corner. So we can sit here in Texas and I can keep an eye on that storm without ever having to get anywhere close to it. So that's one really cool thing is satellites let me see what's going on and where the weather's moving so I can tell you what the weather's gonna do as we go over the next few days. All right, what do y'all think that is? Looks like a volleyball with legs, doesn't it? All right, so you see the clouds outside. How hard though, if you walked outside, could you tell me if there's rain inside the clouds? Gets kind of, sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't there? Well, what that is, that's a radar, okay? What a radar does is looks inside the clouds. It lets me know if there's rain, if there's ice, if there's snow, how bad the winds are, if there's a chance of a tornado. And I got an example for you. There's a number inside of here on this side. I'm the only one who can see it. That's between 1 and 5. Pretty hard to try to guess what it is, isn't it? How many of y'all think it's 1? How many of y'all think it's 2? How many of you think it's 3? How many of you think it's 4? How many of you think it's 5? All right, how many of y'all think you can guess now? What's funny is more of y'all cheer than actually guess 4 typically. So, and the most common number is always 3. So this is an example. So you're looking at a cloud out in the distance, it's hard to see what's inside of it. What if you could see inside that cloud and know what's going on? Well, that radar inside that volleyball there pretty much it's shooting a beam out in the sky. And what it's trying to do is hit stuff in the sky to see what it is. The more that it hits, it sends back a signal and says, hey, there's a bunch of stuff inside of this cloud. So it lets me see inside the clouds to tell you if there's going to be rain or if there's going to be snow or how heavy the rain is. And you'll see it gives me an image just like that. So if you ever see us on TV tracking thunderstorms and stuff like that, that's what the radar shows us. Well, as meteorologists, I can tell by looking at that what's going on. The difference in the colors depends on how heavy the rain is or if there's hail. And how the storms are shaped, I can tell if the storm's spinning and maybe it can produce a tornado. So that gives us a view inside of the cloud, which is really cool when we're trying to tell you what's going on, because just looking at a cloud, it's hard to tell what's going on. You know that parts of central Texas, probably not Waco, but when you are sleeping tonight, could even see a little snow try to fall. And that's where the radar starts to help us, as we can see inside of it. Nothing that's going to cause problems. Everybody's got to go to school, but something we're watching. So, all right, so let's show you. So you take all those cool tools. Every morning I get up and do the weather for Central Texas. I've been doing the weather here for nearly 15 years. That's where I do all my work. That's the forecast center. How many of y'all like to wake up early in the morning? You see how none of your teachers rose their hands? I got one. Okay, I can guarantee you all, would not like to wake up as early as I do. I get up to go to work at 2 o'clock in the morning every day. I'm in the door at 3 o'clock, and even then I'm still running 900 miles an hour to try to get the forecast together to do the weather. So that's where I do all my work. Now, one cool thing is you see that there, but that's normally not what you see on TV. You see me or Rusty or somebody else standing in front of a big wall of weather maps, don't you? And we're pointing at it and telling you what's going on. But do you know what's actually behind me? Any of y'all ever been to the Mayborn Museum? All right, we got some. Have y'all ever been and see the little green wall that's there, that used to be there where you could do that? All right, so this is what you actually see if you're actually in our TV station. So what's cool is, so I stand right in front of that camera there, and behind me, there's absolutely nothing, just a big green wall. What's cool is that camera talks to my computer and says, anywhere that you see that color green, I want you to put a weather map on it. So what do you think would happen if I wore a green suit? It'd be my head floating on TV is what it would do. So it would say, okay, put a weather map right on top of me. So I cannot wear green on TV, or I would start disappearing on TV. So the way it works, though, since nothing's behind me, you see there's a couple little TVs there to the side, and then there's a TV on that camera. So I can turn and see on the sides what you see at home. And then when I'm talking to you at home, I actually see myself. So that's how we do the weather, but there's nothing behind us. And that's just an easy way for us to put graphics on there with the new technology that we've got. All right, now one cool thing that we've added here in the last couple of years. So your principal was saying that he thought he wanted to be a storm chaser. Is that right?
Yes.
So this is our storm chasing vehicle that we have. Now, this is more than just a cool car that we go driving out looking at storms. This is full of all kinds of crazy technology that we can not only do storm chasing, but do all kinds of news stuff. That car's worth about $180,000. Yeah, so worth more than more homes because it's got so much technology. But it lets us show people what storms are going on, and we can be live and driving down the road chasing and looking at the storms and stuff like that. And then I've got, I think, one more picture of kind of what it looks, some of the views that we had. So this was some flooding that we saw down in the Belton area with our weather edge. So if you ever see us out there, that's kind of what we're out in looking around. Now, storm chasing looks really fun, but don't go doing it unless you learn a lot more about weather, because it can get very scary out there getting close to storms and stuff like that. So our goal is not to get real close to the storm, but to let you see what's going on and keep an eye on the storms, kind of be that eye out there in the storm. Okay, so those are some of the cool tools we use. Let's talk about some really crazy weather that we see here in Central Texas. So what do y'all think that is? It's a storm. That's a thunderstorm cloud there. Now I'm gonna use a fancy term, and we'll come back to this. It's called a supercell thunderstorm. Okay. Did y'all learn about the names of some of the different types of clouds? Do y'all so they have like weird ones like cirrus clouds and stratus clouds. So this one here has a really big, crazy name called a cumulonimbus cloud, which just means thunderstorm cloud. So we're going to talk about thunderstorms. We're not going to see any thunderstorms probably anytime soon because it's wintertime here in Central Texas. But one thing that we deal with a lot is the different types of bad weather that comes with thunderstorms. All right, so you see this big old cloud here. That goes way up in the sky, doesn't it? Yeah. All right, what happens, what makes a cloud? What's inside of it? Water. Y'all listening to your teachers. Okay, so you take these little pieces of water here, okay? So that top of that thunderstorm is higher than where airplanes fly. Way up in the sky, okay? So what happens, the higher you get in the sky, does it get warmer or do you think it gets colder? It gets colder. Now, so you take that little piece of water, it goes way up in the sky. What do you think happens to it the colder it gets? What happens to water when it gets cold? Freezes. All right, so that little piece of water turns into a little piece of ice, okay? You see all these bubbles on the side of that thunderstorm? Yeah. All right, So that's what's called turbulence. That means these clouds look all pretty, okay? But what's happening inside that thunderstorm is the air is bouncing and going all kinds of crazy inside of it, okay? If you ever watch when there's a day and you see a thunderstorm and you look up and you find where the jets and stuff are, they're all trying to get as far away from all that turbulence inside of it. Okay, so you take that little piece of ice and you take that turbulence, okay? That's something, y'all got to remember that because that's going to come into play with the next piece of what we're going to talk about here. Ooh. Okay, what's that? Lightning. Okay. So, all right, remember that little piece of ice I was telling you about? Okay. All right, so that little piece of ice is flying around inside of that thunderstorm, okay? How many of y'all have ever walked outside and touched your car and shocked yourself? No. Or girls that got long hair, how many of y'all ever done this where you rub a balloon on your hair? What happens to it? It gets all static. All right, how many of y'all have ever shocked your little brother or sister or something like that when you, oh yeah, then you start raising your hand. Okay, so that's static electricity, okay? So what happens when you shock your little brother or sister, you rub your feet on the carpet, walk up to them, shock them. So same things happen inside a thunderstorm, except thunderstorms don't have shoes and socks on. So that little piece of ice, remember? So they're flying around inside the thunderstorm and they're bumping into each other. What that is, just like you rubbing your feet on the carpet or taking that balloon and rubbing it on your hair, building up that charge until that charge is so strong inside that thunderstorm that zap, just like you sticking out your finger and shocking your brother or sister, here comes that lightning bolt. It's really funny when you shock your brother or sister, as long as you're faster than them. But that lightning bolt's not quite as funny. Crazy thing, so a lightning bolt is no wider than a pencil, and it's 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. That's how hot a lightning bolt is. And when you see a lightning bolt, so that's pure electricity coming from the cloud to the ground. That electricity travels so fast that a lightning bolt, if you looked at it in really slow motion, it actually flashes 5 times sometimes, and you only see once because our eyes can't understand. And sometimes when you look at it, it'll look like it comes from the cloud to the ground, and sometimes it looks like it actually comes up from the ground. What lightning is pretty much like you connecting a power plug into a wall. It's all of a sudden, there's the lightning. Now, how hot did I say it was? 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. And remember, it's little bitty. So if you take, y'all have all heard thunder, right? Yeah. Okay, what thunder is, you take that little bitty lightning bolt and it heats up the air so hot, so fast, that it pretty much explodes. And that's that rumbling noise that you hear. The reason that you see lightning before you hear thunder is that the light travels faster than we can hear sound. So one cool thing I'm going to give to y'all, how many of y'all like math? There we go. All right, so later we're going to, your teachers, y'all get, how many for your class? Every one of y'all are going to get one of these cool little Project Tornado booklets. Inside of it, 1, you can find out if your name's ever going to be a hurricane, but 2, there's in there you can calculate how far away lightning is based on when you see the lightning and when you hear the thunder. So that's a cool thing each you can do. Now what we tell people is though, if you hear thunder, you need to go inside. So that's when we want you to get inside, because most people that get struck by lightning are not in the middle of a thunderstorm because you want to get inside. It's when stuff's after or before the thunderstorm. So lightning's one type of weather we deal with. There's other types that we deal with as well when it comes to thunderstorms. And really, they all have different, and all kind of come back to that main thunderstorm that we're talking to. And the other one, here's, if you want to go and switch to the next one here. Oh, actually, I got a pop quiz question for you. Which state do you think has the most lightning? How many of you think Missouri? All right. How many of you think Texas? How many of you think Florida? How many of you think Hawaii? How many of y'all just want to go to Hawaii? Yeah. All the teachers raise their hand. All right. If you want to click it, we'll give them the answer here. So, nearly every year, Florida's #1. What's funny is they're known as the Sunshine State, but they see more thunderstorms than any other state. Texas and Missouri are usually #2, #3. Hawaii is like 25th or something. I just grabbed one to try to trick you. So we see a lot of lightning here in Texas. Whoa! All right. So there you go. That's hail. All right. So if you ever wanted to be a storm chaser, that right there is the windshield of a storm chaser that took a wrong turn. So all right, you remember those pieces of ice we were talking about in that thunderstorm? All right, they start out little bitty, okay? So what they do though, remember that turbulence I was talking about? So that piece of ice goes shooting up in the sky. Well, it'll come falling back down and hitting the water that's inside that thunderstorm. Then it keeps flying around. What happens is every time it hits more water, it freezes. So that little piece of ice starts getting a little bigger and a little bigger and a little bigger until it's too big and comes shooting out of the thunderstorm. Hail is just ice. That's all it is, frozen water, just like ice cubes in your freezer. But they're flying from sometimes up to 3 miles in the sky and can fly as fast as nearly 100 miles per hour. So you wouldn't want to get hit by an ice cube getting about 100 miles an hour, would you? Whew, that doesn't sound good. All right, I got one more pop quiz question for you. What do you think's the largest hail ever recorded? How many of you think softball size, about this big? Okay, how many of you think baseball size, about this big? All right, how many of you think golf ball size, about this big? All right, how many of you think soccer ball size, about that big? Man, all of y'all, I know some of y'all just woke up and you know, so here we go. Soccer ball. So that picture that I showed you before, that was about baseball size hitting a windshield. That's the biggest I've ever seen in person. So soccer ball, it's happened twice that we know of. Once in Kansas, once in Nebraska. One time they said it went through the people's roof, through their ceiling, and landed in their living room floor. That's how big it was. So if you took a ruler and measured, that's 8 inches from one side to the other. Now that normally does not happen. If you ever hear me or another meteorologist on TV and we say there's a severe thunderstorm warning for large hail, that's the size of a quarter. That's all it takes to have a warning. That's all it takes. So 1 inch across, the size of a quarter. That'll put dents in your car, dents in your roof, and stuff like that. So again, the safety tip for hail is if it's hailing outside, don't go outside. It hurts really, really bad. And the problem is you can have a thunderstorm that has a bunch of little pea-sized hail. All it takes is one big piece of hail to hit you and really hurt. So if you've never been hit by hail, I would advise not going outside. It's not the most enjoyable thing to do. All right. Yeah. Oh, really? Ooh, man. All right, teachers, if you ever need to get kids' attention, random tornado pictures, get them good. All right, so that's a tornado, right? All right. So tornadoes, fortunately, are the least common type of bad weather that we see. But they can be really, really scary and be something that we want people to be prepared for, okay? So the definition of a tornado is a violently rotating column of air, you see that column there, that stretches from the bottom of a thunderstorm down to the ground. It has to be touching the ground to be officially a tornado. If it's not touching the ground, it's what we call a funnel cloud, meaning it looks like a funnel and it's spinning, but it's not touching the ground. They can also be called twisters. That's another name for them. In Australia, they call them willy willies. So I'm really glad I don't have to stand on TV and say there's a willy willy warning in Waco. I would get really, really tongue-tied. So tornadoes, so how tornadoes form, we could spend all day talking about it, and I'd probably confuse you and confuse me trying to talk about it. All right, the easiest way to talk about it, so you remember that big thunderstorm that we were talking about? All right, we're going to go back to that. So you're in a bathtub, all right? You pull the plug, what happens? It looks like a little tornado, doesn't it? Okay, if you have soap in the water, or if you just watch the water, when you pull that plug before that little funnel forms, what happens to the water? Do you see it kind of turning real slow at first? And then it starts getting a little faster and a little faster. You remember I said there was a term about that thunderstorm, I called it a supercell? Remember that was what I called it? So what that means is a supercell thunderstorm is a thunderstorm that's turning. Just like your bathtub where it's turning real slow, you can't really look at it and tell, but that's the first part of the potential of a tornado. So if you take a thunderstorm that's turning real slow, we've got air shooting up in it real fast, we've got air shooting down in it real fast. Well, sometimes that twisting and that turning in that tornado or in that storm gets a little tighter and tighter, and as it does, it starts stretching that thunderstorm out, and that's what produces a tornado. The problem is they're really, really hard to forecast. That's one of the main reasons we have our weather edge, so that me or one of our other meteorologists, while one of us are on TV, the other one can be outside trying to see if we can see the tornado. That way we can give some extra forecasting ability to let you know. So tornadoes are something that we like to come talk to kids about because you don't see them all the time and you want to have a plan on stuff like that. Now you see all that dark in there? Now, I said a violently rotating column of air. Does that look like air, or does this look like air? Yeah, it looks like clouds, it's rocks, it's dirt, it's all kinds of stuff that tornadoes pick up. Now, tornadoes are weird because they can be as small around as you or me. They can be as wide as nearly 1 mile to 2 miles wide. They can vary in speed, as slow as me or you walking or jogging. They can go as fast as a car going down the interstate sometimes. We've seen them change directions. We've even seen them hop sometimes. Normally, tornadoes happen in the spring. April, May, June, kind of in that time frame. You know, there was a tornado just a couple days ago in Alabama, I believe. What's crazy, there was a tornado there, and then you go up north, and it was really, really cold, so they can happen just about any time. So you're going to get in your booklet here, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time, but inside your booklet here, there's some safety tips that you can take home, show your family, and look at it and say, if there was a tornado, do we know what to do? If there is a tornado, you want to get inside, get away from that storm. Find a room that's inside your house and stuff like that. Hallways, bathrooms, closets, stuff like that. And here, I was telling you, they look different. That one looks a whole lot different. You know what's really cool about this one is, not only is it a skinnier looking tornado, that tornado is actually out over the ocean. That's a water spout. So they're a type of tornado. It's not a sharknado, but just a water spout. So, and then I've got one more picture for you. So Central Texas doesn't see a lot of tornadoes every year, but we have a history of having some really big tornadoes. You all have heard of probably the Waco tornado back in the 1950s. Big tornado went right through downtown Waco. This one was back in 1997. Some of your teachers may know the Gerald tornado. That was the Gerald tornado. That tornado was so big, if you went to a track and walked 3 laps around the track is how far it would take to get from one side to the other to that tornado. So weather's pretty cool, isn't it? Did y'all learn something? All right, so we've got time for some questions. Yeah, Michael Jordan. I guess that's LeBron James now, not Michael Jordan. Yeah.
Do you go out and do any storm chasing?
Yeah, I do. I used to do it when I was in college, and I still do it. I'm pretty much the main one that takes our weather edge out and chases. We have not seen, well, we may have seen a tornado once with it, but it was covered with trees. But we've seen some hail, flooding, high winds, and stuff like that. So that's what we use our weather edge for, yes. So I do go out and storm chase some. Hardest part about forecasting? Hardest part of forecasting is that it's not exact. There's some days that all the stuff will point to this is what it's going to do, and it doesn't do it. You got to remember we're dealing with the whole earth and we're dealing with a big atmosphere. There's changes, and everybody likes to make fun of the weatherman because they say we're never right. That's just part of the joke. So, but forecasting, that it gets hard just because something small can change the forecast really, really big. Yeah. Craziest, so probably the craziest was the first tornado I ever tracked on TV. First tornado I ever tracked on TV hit our television station while we were doing the weather. And Rusty can run a lot faster than you think he can. So yeah, first night we were on TV, first time I'd been working in TV for less than a year. And yeah, knocked out our power, tore up a part of our TV station. What's now Furniture Row used to be like a Sprite and Coca-Cola bottling or distribution area. That all got wiped out. What was crazy, it hit both TV stations in Waco. It knocked us and Channel 25 off air both in the same night. So that's probably the craziest weather I've ever forecast. Hurricanes they're a lot bigger than tornadoes. So I showed you that picture of Hurricane Katrina. Took up nearly the whole Gulf of Mexico. Hurricanes can have winds easily over 100 miles per hour, can cause waves that are over as nearly as tall as this ceiling sometimes in what's called storm surge. But they change in size, but they're really big storms. Yeah?
Do you take at nighttime and the morning?
Do I do nighttimes and mornings? No, I just do mornings. So Rusty does our nighttime weather. So I wake up way too early. I'm asleep when Rusty's doing the weather at night. So I try to go to bed probably about the time y'all are supposed to go to bed. Yeah.
What's the hardest part of
Hardest part of being a meteorologist. other than waking up really early. I think it's just, when you've got bad storms, trying to make sure that you get all the information out to people to try to keep everybody safe. And then hopefully they do what you tell them to, because sometimes people don't like to listen and do what you ask them to. Yeah. He's probably asleep. No, I don't know. Rusty works in the afternoon, so me and him work completely opposite schedules. Yeah.
Is there one season of the year that's easier or harder to avoid?
So the easiest is probably the summer because it's so hot, but it is no fun. So every day is hot, 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 hot. But try to be on TV in the morning, and I do 15 to 20 times or more a morning. So stand up there and try to say, it's gonna be hot, it's gonna be hot, it's gonna be hot. So the easiest forecast is in the summer just because it's hot all the time, but it's no fun to talk about because it's boring to me, and I know it's gotta be boring. And I get tired of saying the word hot so many times. Yeah? Why do they jump? So tornadoes, okay, so remember the bathtub example we were talking about? So if you got the little funnel, what happens to it if you swish the water all around? Does the tornado disappear, the little funnel? Well, but it gets smaller a lot of the times, doesn't it? So tornadoes, just like hurricanes, don't want anything to mess with it. Tornadoes love flat ground with nothing around because it's spinning air, okay? So if turbulence or stuff gets in the way, it'll tear it up. Well, if tornadoes, sometimes if it'll go up and down just because it's getting kind of tore up or messed up, or if the ground's bumpy, the tornado will kind of try to have to figure out where the ground is, so it'll bounce and jump around sometimes. All right, so I think we'll stop there. I want to tell y'all, thank y'all very much, teachers, for second grade to be this quiet. They did awesome. So it is not sometimes, normally I have to tell the teachers it's okay to calm them down 500 times, but they did awesome. They did great. Thank y'all for listening so much, and teachers, just come get how many booklets y'all need out of, and you can give them to them whenever y'all would like. Thank y'all very much.
Mr. Taylor,
Yeah.